Into the speaking portion of our meeting. Tonight it's my delight to introduce Furzy Gotuwako, who is working on his level 5 elective in presentation mastery to moderate a panel discussion. And we felt like this all fit into the work that we're doing on celebrating the wow of what it's like to be in a Toastmasters club, especially Afterburners. And his focus will be more on mentoring, and this will be just a very fun project. Please welcome Furzy Gotuwako.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Afterburners, guests, esteemed panel, thank you for being here tonight to discuss what I consider the most important topic in Toastmasters, mentoring. I think it is through mentoring that we ensure that the people in our clubs truly grow. And that's what we're all here to do, is to grow and move forward. I've asked 4 very esteemed people to come and be part of our panel discussion tonight. On your left, on your far left, the lady closest to me is Diana Patton. She was first brought into Toastmasters in 2003. She's been a VP of membership. She's been an area governor. She's been a division governor, a contest quality chair, lieutenant governor of marketing, now club growth director, lieutenant governor of education, now program quality director, district governor, now district director, district treasurer, and has been a webmaster since 2009. She is a member of 7 clubs, 4 weekly and 3 monthly. Would you please give her a round of applause for that? I tried to find people with different kinds of experiences because I wanted to make sure that what we were putting together as part of our mentoring program here in Afterburners was absolutely the best that it could be. Not just for Fort Worth, not just for the US, but internationally. And you'll see where we will even take questions from people halfway around the world. But we're going to start with a panelist who first joined Toastmasters when he was halfway around the world. This is Godfred Ahuma. Ahuma? Am I getting that right? Ahuma. He's been in Toastmasters 8 years ago. For 8 years. He joined when he was in Tokyo. He says that my Toastmaster experience spans multiple clubs across 3 countries and continents. He's been area director and started and coached new clubs and also mentored many Toastmasters. He is currently serving as the district as the summit manager for our upcoming summit in November. By trade, he is a network engineer by profession. Mr. Ahuma. Sorry, Godfred, I know I can't blew that. I'll make it up to you next year when you come back. Next to Godfred is our distinguished panelist, Terry Menke, who is an advanced communicator silver and advanced leader bronze. She's been part of Toastmasters for 10 years. She is excited that she lacks only 1 speech and her high-performance leadership project to finally achieve Distinguished Toastmaster. By trade, she is a certified public accountant for USMD's corporate office. Terry is a member of 2 advanced specialty clubs, Out on the Town Toastmasters and Highway to Excellence. Terry Menke. And on your far right, he says the other half of the dynamic duo, Mr. Chuck Menke. He has been in Toastmasters for 10 years. Chuck is known throughout District 25 as a perennial contest judge and TLI junkie. He is active in the online Toastmaster Club community, allowing him to make connections worldwide. And he just proved that a moment ago when I told him who one of the questions was from in Shanghai, and he knew her. Toastmasters, making the world smaller, one speaker at a time. Chuck has mentored Toastmasters from all over the globe. He is one of 2 members in the District 25 and one of less than 500 worldwide that have completed the optional program module, Toastmasters Pathway Mentoring. He is close to finishing his third Distinguished Toastmaster. He is also a member of Out on the Town and Highway to Excellence. Please welcome Mr. Chuck Menke, District 25. We have several questions tonight, each with a specific time limit to make sure that we get to as many questions as possible and as many answers as possible. On one of your papers that you have, marked Mentor at the top, you'll notice I have specific times. The first question, each speaker will have 15 seconds to answer, and only 15 seconds. Our timer is going to be going bananas tonight. I hope you had some caffeine, sir. All right, 15 seconds. We'll start with Diana, closest to me, and move to her left. The first question is, describe what a mentor should be.
I think a mentor should be a person that's caring, that wants to be a helper. It's a good listener. Sometimes what we think is good for us is not necessarily what the person really wants. So we need to listen. A person that's available, a person that's willing to say, I don't really know, but we'll find out. You have to care about that person that you're going to be mentoring and find out what their personal goals are.
Thank you. Give her a round of applause.
Thank you. So for me, I see a mentor as a model from a very old Army experience, which is be, know, and do. So the mentor should be of a person. He should know what he's talking about, and then he should do something. I mean, practice what you're preaching. That is what I see a mentor should be as. Be, know, and do. And it's a very old Army model.
Thank you. Well, I hope everybody's taking notes, and if somebody would take notes for me, that'd be awesome. Our third panelist, describe what a mentor should be, Ms. Menke.
I think a mentor should be extremely adaptable. You have to learn your protege forward and backward, and you have to be able to adapt what you are trying to impart to what they need. It's not about you, it's about them.
Excellent, thank you very much. And Chuck, the question to you, describe what a mentor should be.
Thank you, sir. For me, listening is one of the main things. Diana's already talked about that, but dig deep down inside you and make sure you have the empathy to be a mentor. That is the first big thing, is make sure you have the empathy to feel what that person's going to need.
Excellent, thank you. The next section is the quick hits. Each panelist will have 30 seconds to answer each question. We'll just take question one first. What do you do best as a mentor? What do you do best as a mentor? Chuck, may I begin with you on this one?
Yes, you may. For me, I do a lot of video mentoring, and I have to be present. So before the mentoring session comes up, I get in a very contemplative mood. I meditate every day for first thing. So I have to get my mindset where I'm not thinking about what else is going on, what other activities I have to do, what other district activities, what the cats are doing or whatever, or have the TV on. I have to be present for that mentoring session and be in the right mindset.
Excellent, thank you very much. Ms. Terry, 30 seconds. What do you do best as a mentor?
I think my strong suit is listening. I like to find out what makes other people tick and apply what I learn from listening to what they need. Sometimes people don't even know what they need, but the way they tell you different things, the way they answer questions that you might have about what they're looking for will tell you what you need to know in order to be a good mentor. So listening, I believe, is my strong suit.
Very nice, thank you. Strong suit, I like that phrase. Mr. Alpuma, what do you do best as a mentor?
For me, I think it is helping that mentee bring out the best in him or her. I mean, harnessing your potential. Today we saw two new people who joined as guests, or visiting as guests. Normally when we join Toastmasters, we say, I'm going to learn, or I'm here to learn. I think that is not really what it is, but rather we have that in us, but how do we bring it out? And so guiding that person to bring out that potential, I think that's what I really like to do. If you encourage that person to bring out that skill in him or her, because they're not really learning or they're not there, but just taking that step to a Toastmasters club to bring out their leadership potential or that communication skill.
How do you bring it out? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Ms. Patton, what do you do best as a mentor?
I think I'm available for people. I do a lot of follow-up in a lot of different ways. I try not to be too, kind of in your face, but when I feel like, maybe they're not stepping it up a little bit, I'm ready to help them with that next step that maybe they forgot what their goal was. So I'm an encourager, I follow up, and I'm available.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I like what you said about not being too in their face. I get that. I have the same concern myself.
Yeah.
What's the best thing a mentor has ever done for you? What is the best thing a mentor has ever done for you? Mr. Akuma, may I begin with you?
Okay, I'm going to piggyback on what I said earlier on. So the best thing a mentor has done for me is helping me or seeing beyond what I see in myself. I mean, believing in me and saying, okay, I think you have the potential, I think you can do it. And I see this in you. The only thing is, when we join or as a new member, you're that shy or you're in your shell. I mean, you're coiled up and okay, but having that person to encourage you or see beyond what you have and help you bring it up. So that is what a mentor has done for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Menke, what's the best thing a mentor has ever done for you?
The best thing that someone ever did for me was believe in me. And to kind of piggyback on what Godfrey said, bring out the things that I didn't even see in myself. I can remember when I was very first starting in Toastmasters, Bonnie Stroman asked me and Chuck to be chair during one of the conferences. I have always been, believe it or not, a very shy person. I am not outgoing, but Bonnie believed in me, and I think she turned me into an outgoing person, or more outgoing than I used to be.
Nice. Very much. Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you. I've had some incredible mentors, and I still have some incredible mentors. In fact, one's right down here at the end of the table. I have my three musketeers, Mary Lee, Bonnie, and Diana. But two of my mentors who are no longer here, one of them did the best thing they've ever done for me. I was struggling in leadership one time, and I said, I can't do this. And he looked at me with the voice of God, and Morris Tate, for some of the older ones that know him. He said, I want you to take that word out of your vocabulary right now, because together we can do it.
Thank you very much. Nice. Ms. Patton, you have the final word on this. What's the best thing a mentor has ever done for you?
I was pondering about my mentors. I think a lot of us know David McAllister. He can be a little kind of hard to deal with sometimes. But he always wants the best for you.
That's right.
And whatever you're doing, the project or whatever. I learned more from him and gotten ideas. Sometimes they were a little over the top and couldn't quite get there. But it gave me the belief that I could improve upon what I was doing by learning from him and believing in myself and the team that I was working with. So,
Excellent. Thank you very much. Our third and final 30-second answer question is, how often do you meet or talk with your mentee? How often do you, here we're getting into some of the real nuts and bolts of being a mentor with a protege. So how often do you speak, do you meet, do you get in touch with your mentee or your protege?
Protege.
Mr. Menke, would you care to begin?
Yes, Toastmasters International has changed the term now. Instead of mentee, they're calling them their protege. And you have to work with your protege to see what the right mix is. Some may need more TLC than the other ones do. Some may be more advanced than the other ones. Your other. So it really depends on that protege, how often you're gonna talk to them. Because you just have to kind of let the flow go and see what the mix is gonna be.
Excellent, thank you very much, appreciate that. Ms. Patton, would you care to go second?
I think when you're in the beginning of the relationship, you're probably going to do it more often, probably weekly, perhaps after a meeting, before a meeting, when the person's doing a new role, when they're doing a speech that they're not sure of. You need to be there for them. But, that your protege becomes your friend along the way, doesn't it? And I know I sometimes forget that I was the mentor to this lovely gal at South Lake Club, and we chat a lot and just in a friendship way. But the other day, she approached me about an issue she had with the speech she was giving, and I realized I'm still her mentor. It made me feel good, and I hope that, a lot of time had gone by that I talked to her as a mentor and a protege, but I was there and I felt comfortable, really happy that she approached me about her issue. So.
Excellent, thank you. And Mr. Ahuma?
Thank you. So how often is going to be, for me, it depends on the stage of mentoring. But earlier on, once you begin to mentor that person, you might be meeting often. But then, as Diana mentioned earlier on, you have to be careful you're not being that pushy, right? So it will mostly be maybe trying to get that person to make that step. So it's not really meeting so much in the beginning, but helping that person. Maybe it could be through emails, maybe a little bit nudge sometimes to say, hey, how are you doing? I mean, are you ready to give your speech? Not being that pushy person, and then as time goes on, maybe in the middle, you try to maybe meet often and encourage that person. And then as time goes on, you try to bring yourself. So I wouldn't say there's maybe a specific, but it all depends on the stage of and how the protege is doing.
Thank you. And Ms. Menke?
I agree with what everyone has said, and I believe if you set a specific number of meetings or number of times to meet, you're doing a disservice to your protege. I think you need to meet whenever they need you. Don't say, we're going to meet once a week for the next 3 months. They might need you 3 times in 1 week when they're working on their first speech. They might not need you at all. They might just need a sounding board right before they get ready to do their speech. So don't lock yourself into saying a specific number of meetings or times to meet. Work with your protege and figure it out between the two of you.
Fantastic. Could we give our panelists a big round of applause on that? For those of you who are relatively new to Toastmasters, I hope you start to get a vibe for just how supportive the community is. And I can tell you that here at AFTERBURNERS, we've got some folks here who've been here 20, 30 years, and I am so glad that I get to be the beneficiary of their support, their knowledge, and I'm going to say it, their love. And I really appreciate that. And it's one of the most fantastic things about being in any Toastmasters club, but personally for AFTERBURNERS. We have a lady from Shanghai who has given us 4 questions. Those questions are written out on the paper in front of you, but I'm going to go ahead and play just a quick video of her asking those questions. And this is Helen He. It's H-E, but Helen He in Shanghai, and she's a district director. I know the volume's going to be very low, but at least you've got the questions in front of you. I hope that helps.
Hello everyone, I'm Helen He, District 85 Director from Shanghai, China. Today, I have a few interesting mentoring questions for you. The first one is, how does your mentoring experience benefit your personal growth? Question number 2, if you can have any choice to choose anyone in this world to be your mentee, what kind of person would you like to choose? Question number 3, what precious lessons you can share with us in building the mentoring relationship? In the end, I also want to express my sincere thanks to our previous Toastmasters members, firstly for your invitation for these sessions, and I would also like to address your questions, how we can find our inner mentor in Toastmasters.
All right.
Hello everyone, I'm Helen.
Who would like to go first? Each of our panelists has chosen one of the questions Helen has posed, and I'm going to let them choose as to who goes first. And they will have, is it 60 seconds on this one? Excellent. They each have 60 seconds on this one.
So we go in
Who would like to go first?
And the 1 through, yeah, copies.
And if you would tell us which question you chose,
We're
that'd
gonna
be
go
great.
1 through 4.
I should have chosen the fifth one.
All right, okay. That's great.
Okay, so the first one is, how does your mentoring experience benefit your personal growth? That's interesting. So what I like about mentoring is reverse mentoring. I mean, we are in Toastmasters, and the fact that you're a mentor does not mean that you're the body of knowledge. What I like is when I start to mentor somebody, the opportunity to learn something new from that person. Not only am I impacting what I have learned over the years or with my experience in Toastmasters, but I am learning from that person. And that is what I really like. I usually say Toastmasters is the biggest and free university I've ever attended. Just a few examples. I was talking to one of my mentees, and I asked him, what do you do? He said, I do neural hacking. And suddenly, it just clicked. I started, okay, tell me more about it. So I learned something from there. I met people, also I was mentoring people who, oh, what do you do? I said, oh, I've lived in Europe for 10 years, I write books. So I started, I got curious, and I started to learn more about what that person had. When you mentor, I look at the skill the other person has that I can also learn. That skill that can also be valuable to other members in the club. So that is what I really like about, in terms of benefit to personal growth, I like reverse mentoring.
Fantastic, thank you. Reverse mentoring, what a great phrase. Excellent. Who would like to go second? Yes, Terry.
I chose the question, if you could have any mentee, what kind of person would you choose? I believe I would like someone who is a sponge. I also do not want someone who is just like me. I agree with Godfrey in that I want to be able to learn from my protege, hopefully as much as they are learning from me. Being a sponge means that they are willing to learn. They're willing to take the few pieces of wisdom that I might have to impart and build their Toastmasters life, if you will, around some of the things that I might be able to give them. And it doesn't mean that all I'm going to be telling them is how to be a Toastmaster or how to give a speech. I think having someone who's willing to accept what I might have to say on any subject is very important. It also makes me a better Toastmaster because I have to learn the things that I am going to be teaching someone else. So someone who's a sponge and very willing to learn.
Fantastic, thank you. Third?
That is me. What does it take to build the mentoring relationship? What Percy alluded to in my introduction was there's a optional module called the Toastmaster Mentoring Module, and it's not for the faint of heart. There's 3 parts to it only. The first part is you're assessing yourself as a mentor. Then you mentor a Toastmaster in one project. Then you work with a Toastmaster for 6 months. Basically, think of it as a marriage. Really. So to get that relationship solidified, you have to be committed. Both parties have to be committed. And you have to get to know the individual. The individuals that I mentored worldwide, I know what their kids were doing. I know, what university they're in. I know what their likes are. And we talk about dumplings, and we talk about egg rolls, and we talk about Thai cooking, and all kinds of stuff before we even get into the Toastmaster stuff. So it's really to make them feel at ease and get that trust relationship going. And that, to have that good, solid, happy marriage.
Marriage. 6 months. Because I'm in that program.
That's the big project. It is a 6-month project. So, as they say in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he chose wisely.
Joel, would you marry me? No. Thank you for your answer. 4, Ms. Patton.
Okay, my question, how can we find our inner mentor in Toastmasters?
I like that.
It's kind of deep, isn't it? I think our word of the day, contemplative, comes to mind. maybe reflective a little bit. I think, we need to get a handle on how we felt when we first joined Toastmasters and remind ourselves of the beginning of this journey that we had, but also a willingness to realize that people are different than we are. I've been given, I'm a mentor for a new gal at South Lake, and I was, eager to help her with that icebreaker. But she says, I'm just kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. I'll get it done, okay? And I thought, oh, okay, that's just fine. And I know she's going to do great because she's a sharp gal. So, I'm going to learn from her some things that she does well by being that kind of person. Find yourself a mentor, I think, is another way. Find someone that you respect and tell them, they can let you know some things that you might improve upon as a Toastmaster, and then being a mentor for someone else. And just a willingness, make that commitment inside. Don't be too pushy, but also reflect back on, have I talked to that person in the last month? So just get those things inside yourself to develop that mentor that's inside of you.
Excellent. Please give them all a round of applause. As you noticed from the video, we're open to getting insight from anywhere and everywhere. And remember that it's Toastmasters International.
Mhm.
And I think mentoring can have different definitions and nuances from different parts of the world.
Absolutely.
I put this out to the community, and this is from Wangu Kamundia. I know I butchered that. And she is from Mombasa Road Toastmasters Club. And she asked, how do I help my protege get the best out of this, particularly when she is unresponsive, lacks initiative, or only reaches out when there is no time to do a good job in the assignment? Now, for this round of question and answer, we've got 5 minutes, and I'm gonna let you all discuss that as you see fit amongst yourselves. Amongst us, but let you decide how you want to work those 5 minutes. Yes, Ms. Patton.
I think right up front, you need to have an understanding of how you're going to communicate with the person. It may be email, text, phone calls. So, you're right up front about that. And then let them know the expectation of how, when you'll be able to get back with that person. And then also you need some expectation from them. So I think having that kind of out of the way at first is a good thing. Try to be available, but don't let them walk all over you. Be very aware of why they joined Toastmasters. Maybe go back to that and, from different angles, when maybe they're not as responsive as you think they might be. And maybe they're okay, if they're not wherever they are. And sometimes you might just decide it needs to be a different person to be their mentor, I think. Maybe it's just not a good connection there. I think that would be the last resort. So that's my thought on it.
Okay.
You have to let them kind of go with it. I hate to say this, but you have to kind of maybe let them flounder a little bit. And I'm not being mean about that, but they have to learn, they're adults, hopefully. Am I an adult? But you do have to let them kind of go their way, and then they may have to find their way back to you. Now, because you just can't force yourself on them, saying, you need me, you're not answering my calls, and you're getting ready to do this project. You just have to kind of let them go their own way, and hopefully they realize, oops, I need some guidance, I need some, not really coaching, but I need some support from this understanding, listening ear.
Actually, I think you said not really coaching, but I think sometimes
You have to go
you
with
might have to step in as a coach a little bit. And the difference between a coach and mentor is a coach is typically a short-term, one project type thing. Mentoring is a much longer term. Sometimes you might need to step in and be a coach for that one project and maybe push a little bit harder to get them going in the right direction. and give them a little bit more detailed information about how to do it initially. Not to do it on a continual basis, but just to get them going, to get them kind of that little push to get them started.
Yes. Interesting. I think I agree with everything you're saying. The only thing I want to add to that is when we say unresponsive, that's a little bit interesting. But this person paid or walked into a Toastmasters lab to join Toastmasters. Right. So if you say unresponsive, for me as a mentor, the first thing that I do is when I'm assigned a mentor, or when somebody didn't pay or wants me to mentor that person, we sit down and we set a tone. I mean, that first discussion is going to be what is the goal and what are the expectations. So what do I expect from you? What are you also expecting from me? What the other thing my mentors or people before me taught me was in Toastmasters there's no teacher, there's no student, and you only get what you put in. So these are some of the things that I tell a mentor when we first sit down. So if you decide to be unresponsive, again, that means, well, you aren't probably maybe ready for it. There are so many things happen in life, maybe work, we're all busy or do things like that. Maybe this is not the right time for you are not at the right stage where you want to probably develop your leadership skill. Do you want to take a look at your schedule? So those are the things. The first thing is setting the tone and making the mentor, the mentee or the protege understand what the expectation is and what needs to go into it.
And exactly like Diana said, maybe you find out it's just not the right fit and you need to terminate that relationship and find them another mentor.
And back on this coaching versus mentoring, I've been through a lot of physical therapists and I've had a lot of leg problems and stuff like that. My physical therapists were not my mentors. They were my coaches. And I knew that when I was in rehab, I knew it was up to me to get that ball over the goal line. And it was that physical therapist. Okay, we went 10 feet today. Now we're going to go 15 feet. Okay, now we're going to go 17 feet. And they were coaching me, say, okay, there. But they weren't a mentor, but they were a coach. So it was a short-term project to get me out of rehab.
But in the long run, a mentor, you knew that you had to do the rehab.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So,
They were more my surgeons were my mentors.
exactly.
In that sense.
Very nice.
Anything else?
Boom, 5 minutes. Go.
Wow.
Oh, man, you are good. We're going to move to the next section, which is questions from our audience.
Oh, no.
Who invented liquid soap? No. Are there, what kinds of questions do we have from our guests this evening or our members?
I actually have a question.
Femi, I think we should stand up. I think we should make you stand up. Okay, good.
My question is for any one of you is, as a mentor, what advice can you give to your prodigy to help him or her maintain confidence on a consistent basis, not just in speaking, but in everyday life?
I've run into this with, I mentor a lot of the Asian Toastmasters exchange students, and I've run into this about believing in yourself and having that inner drive that you have to know that you can do it. You may not be able to do it right then, but you will eventually learn how to do it, because a lot of them were struggling as English was a second language, and they would get so upset about their, what I call, about Chinglish, their Chinese English. And they said, well, I can't do this. I said, yes, you can. So you just have to believe in yourself and keep instilling that confidence in them and keep them built up, because that's part of your job as a mentor. It's almost like a life coach type thing.
And I think the way to do that is to reinforce when they do something correct, or when they do something right, or when they do something outside of their comfort zone.
Celebrate.
Celebrate their accomplishments. If someone is terrified of speaking and they get up and give their icebreaker speech, emphasize strongly that you understand how difficult that was and what a good job they did just getting up there. The speech may have been horrible, but they got outside of their comfort zone and they got up and they did it, and that does deserve celebration. So celebrate whenever you can when something goes right.
Talk about positive reinforcement.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Great. Any other questions?
I have one more.
Okay, would you like to go?
Yeah.
For it. I'm on the kind of look over.
When you guys first became speakers or joined Toastmasters, how else apart from like weekly meetings did you practice like public speaking?
I'm one of the fly on the pants type guys. I rarely rehearse my speeches, and it showed at times, but I did quite well. But I go over it quite a bit, yes. But how often? It just depended on. It really depended on the project. How if it was a technical project or a project that I knew what the subject was going to be about, my life or whatever, or if it was something that I had researched it. So it really depends, depending on the project and how much time is put in.
And for me, when I first started, it changed. When I first started, I did practice in front of a mirror, just like they say to do in Toastmasters. And the first couple of speeches, that didn't really work for me. So I start out now by writing out my speech completely. I know they say sometimes just write out the high points or write out notes. I write out my speech completely, and then I do speak it out loud, because I have found out that what you write on paper sounds very different when it comes out of your mouth. So even if you don't talk in front of a mirror or talk in front of another person, say it out loud, because you will find there's a lot of things that need to be changed when you do that.
And on a speech, I start at the end. I write my ending out first, and then work backwards to see how I'm going to get there with my points. Very interesting, because I know what I'm going to end up with.
Sarah, do you have a question?
No, I just have a comment.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
One of the things that I do is I record my speech and listen back to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So to add to that, when I joined Toastmasters, just like when you checked, I was a little bit of a Toastmasters junkie. So I used to be in 4 clubs at the same time. When I first joined, I didn't know much then. Because each club has its own dynamics. And I mean, there are different people and people you aspire to be like. So I used to visit different clubs, and I pick people or learn from different people. So it wasn't really about me trying to keep speech all the time, but it was also what I was picking from the different people that I get to see. So that was one thing that I did to help me.
Very nice. Let's give them a big round of applause on that. Our next section, this is the dealer's choice. Each panelist was given the opportunity to choose one of the following questions, and they have a minute to answer. Is there anyone who'd like to go first? Is there anyone who'd like to go second? That actually works on 8th graders.
I'll take
You good? You want to go?
I'll take how do you prepare someone to be a mentor.
Okay, you have 1 minute, sir. How do you prepare to have, which one are you doing? How do you prepare someone to be a mentor? Excellent.
First, it's like when you see that spark in a club member. You see, and there was an incredible international speech a couple of years ago. I see something in you. And it was like when Bonnie Stroman walked up to us, they see that spark. So you have to identify that person and then, again, take them under your wings. Give back, and give back to what has been given to you in this incredible organization. You have to work with them and make sure that they do have the qualities of being a mentor. This project, this mentoring project, is a really bear to take on because it is 6 months. But the first section, that's section 3, is a wonderful self-realization and self-actualization of what it takes to be a mentor. Do you have it in you? So it would be good to even give that to them and let them go through that project and say, do I have what it takes to be a mentor? Am I going to have the commitment to stay with it and stay after it with that protege?
Terrific. Thank you, John. Yes.
I'll take the one. What advice do you have for a first-time mentor? I think first of all, don't be too hard on yourself. You volunteered to do this, and be, obviously, when you take on a new task, you want to do the best that you can. So learn all that you can about it. Today, I thought I'll just refresh myself on what Toastmasters International has out there about mentors, and even older material about the mentee and the mentor, what to expect from each side. So do some research on that, so you've got an idea in your head what is expected of you. And then the other advice is, be a little selective on that first mentee that you have. Work with your VP Ed at your club or another officer. Make sure you've got a pretty good matchup. And then I think we've said a lot of different tips here. Have a meeting where you have set expectations between yourself and that person. Find out what their goals are, and realize you're gonna probably learn more than they did at the end of the project, whether it's 6 months or 3 years, and you'll find that you've built a new friend.
And I think Diana brought up a good point, whether it's 6 months or 3 years. So what length of time do you work with a mentor and a protege? I think it really depends on the people. In fact, in Toastmasters, originally under the old program, you were a mentor for the first 3 projects in the Competent Communicator Manual. Depending on how long it took each person to give their first 3 speeches would depend on how long you were their mentor. However, Diana brought up a really good point. Just because you have completed the Toastmaster mandate for the number of speeches or the number of months to be a mentor, that doesn't mean being a mentor stops. You can continue on for your entire life being a mentor to someone, whether you stay in Toastmasters or not. And that's another point. You don't have to mentor people only in Toastmasters. It flows over into your personal life as well as your Toastmaster life. So being a mentor can be anywhere from a short period of time to the rest of your life.
Thank you. Good perspective.
I'm going to combine 2 questions. I'll pick a little bit on what Chuck said earlier on. And then the second one is going to be, do I have a mentor myself, and what do they do for me? I have so many mentors in Toastmasters, depending on what I am looking to learn. So at times, maybe I like the way this person uses storytelling. I like the way this person holds his audience. So those are things that I'd like to. So I have so many mentors in Toastmasters across the world, Paris, Tokyo, all over. But it all depends on what I want to learn, or what I have seen that person do that I would want to take something from. Now, the second thing that I really wanted to talk about, that is, how do you prepare someone to be a mentor? When I saw the flyer for this event, there was one thing that caught my eye. That was, they said refreshment.
It's AFTERBURNERS.
It's AFTERBURNERS.
I mean, it wasn't a refreshment, but again, what caught me was there was a line under it that says, of course, it's AFTERBURNERS. And many of us here in District 25 do know what AFTERBURNERS or what a club is. Right? So being a mentor, or to prepare someone to be a mentor, is also, what is that foundation? What is the club? I mean, mentors do thrive in that environment, in that club. So where you have that culture, you have that club that grows or help people to grow, that is where you get good mentors.
Fantastic. I'm going to apologize. Oh, yes, would you please give us a big round of applause? I'm going to apologize because I'm going to have to shortchange you on some time. We've gone over the 25 minutes, and so I'm going to hold us there. I want to thank our panelists so much for giving up of their time and their energy, and most of all, your knowledge. And I know that we're going to take this as a group of people here and strengthen the mentoring in our club and make it the backbone of what we are. Thank you very much. Can you please